In the cursed town of Ravendale, where darkness and despair reigned, a young woman named Lyla carried the mysterious mark of darkness on her wrist, a symbol of a curse that had haunted her family for generations. The town's only hope lay in finding a man with a heart pure enough to lift the curse and save Ravendale from ruin. To uncover the truth, Lyla wove a magical tapestry that revealed the deepest secrets of those who touched it, exposing greed, deceit, and ambition. As men from across the town came forward to prove their worth, the tapestry exposed their hidden flaws, dividing the town and igniting dangerous tensions. But one man, the humble carpenter Ewan, emerged as an unlikely hero. Together, he and Lyla uncovered shocking betrayals, confronted Harold, a power hungry rival, and faced a final breathtaking test to break the curse. With magic, sacrifice, and the unyielding power of truth, Lyla and Ewan transformed Ravendale into a beacon of hope. This is a story of redemption, courage, and the strength to rebuild even in the darkest of times. If you're ready for an unforgettable tale of betrayal, destiny, and love, don't miss out. Subscribe now for more amazing stories like this one. Nestled deep within the mist, shrouded valley, the town of Ravendale seemed like a place frozen in time. Its cobblestone streets wound their way through tightly packed houses with sagging roofs, and its people moved with a quiet urgency that betrayed their fear of something unseen. The surrounding forests loomed ominously, their ancient trees whispering secrets to the wind. Above it all, the jagged peaks of the Ironclaw Mountains stood as silent sentinels, casting long shadows over the struggling town below. Ravendale had long been cursed, or so the story said. Generations ago, a powerful weaver named Ailina had been betrayed by the town's elders. They had sought her skills to create a magical tapestry to bring prosperity, but out of greed, denied her rightful payment. Betrayed and heartbroken, Alina had woven her final piece using threads dipped in her tears and blood. It was said that she cursed her creation, ensuring that Ravendale would only know peace when her descendant bore the mark of darkness, and the curse was broken by a worthy soul. For years, the mark of darkness was thought to be a myth, a tale to keep children obedient and adults humble. But when Lyla, a gifted young weaver, was born, the whispers began anew. The black crescent-shaped mark on her wrist was undeniable, as was her extraordinary talent with the loom. Her tapestry seemed alive, shimmering with light and color that no other artisan could replicate. Yet, her gifts brought her no joy. The mark branded her as cursed, an outcast in her own home. Lila's childhood was one of lonely corridors and fearful glances. The townspeople treated her as though misfortune clung to her like a shadow. Her father, a once proud merchant, had died mysteriously when she was only 8. Her mother, desperate to shield Lyla, withdrew from society, leaving the girl to grow up in the quiet solitude of their modest home on the edge of the forest. Lyla spent most of her days at the loom, weaving intricate patterns and dreaming of a world where she could belong. By the time she reached adulthood, the town's resentment had crystallized into outright hostility. Ravendale was in decline. The crops failed year after year. The river that once teemed with fish had turned sluggish, and the air seemed thick with despair. The townsfolk needed someone to blame, and Lyla, with her mark of darkness, became an easy target. They whispered that her very existence had brought the curse upon them, that her birth had sealed their doom. Yet, despite the scorn, Lyla held her head high. She found solace in her craft, pouring her emotions into her tapestries. Her work adorned the walls of the wealthiest homes in Ravendale, though no one dared openly acknowledge her skill. She was both revered and reviled, a paradox that only deepened her isolation. It was on a particularly grim morning, under a sky choked with heavy clouds, that the town elders summoned Lyla to the square. The summons was rare, and the air buzzed with curiosity and dread as the townspeople gathered. Lyla stood before the council, her slender frame cloaked in a simple grey shawl, her eyes defiant despite the murmurs around her. The head elder, a gaunt man named Osric, addressed her with a voice as dry as the brittle leaves that skittered across the ground. "Lyla," he began, "the curse on Ravendale grows heavier with each passing year. Our fields are barren, our livestock weak. The people are desperate, and the mark you bear cannot be ignored." Lila's heart pounded, but she kept her expression steady. She had expected this confrontation for years. "What do you want from me, Elder Osric?" she asked, her voice calm, but edged with steel. Osric hesitated, glancing at his fellow elders before continuing. "The prophecy speaks of a chosen one who can break the curse. You must find him." The crowd erupted into hushed murmurs, a cacophony of doubt and speculation. Lila's eyes narrowed. "And how am I to do that?" Another elder, a woman named Marin, stepped forward. Her voice was gentler, but no less resolute. "There is a way. You must test the men of the town. The one who proves his worth will break the curse." A ripple of unease passed through the gathering. Men shifted uncomfortably, and women whispered behind cupped hands. Lyla felt a wave of indignation rise within her. "You want me to parade through the town, testing every man like some object to be claimed." Osric raised a hand to quiet her. "This is not a matter of pride or dignity, child. This is about survival. If you refuse, the curse will persist, and Ravendale will fall." Lila's jaw tightened, her mind racing. The weight of the town's expectations was unbearable, yet a part of her longed for freedom. From the curse, from the mark, from the endless cycle of fear and rejection. "And what if no one proves worthy?" she challenged. Osric's gaze hardened. "Then we are truly lost." That night, as the town's uneasy energy simmered in the air, Lyla sat by her loom, staring at her unfinished tapestry. Her mind was a whirlwind of doubt and anger. She had spent her entire life burdened by a fate she hadn't chosen, and now she was expected to gamble her future on the slim chance of finding a savior. It was maddening. As the hours dragged on, the firelight casting flickering shadows across the room, Lyla made her decision. She would not simply obey the elder's decree. If she was to bear the weight of this curse, she would take control of her destiny. She would do it on her terms. The following morning, she sought out Theo, the enigmatic seer who lived in the depths of the Whispering Woods. Theo was a figure of legend, known for his cryptic visions and his reluctance to meddle in the affairs of men. It took hours of navigating through twisted paths and overgrown trails before Lyla reached his dwelling, a modest hut draped with moss and adorned with strange charms. Theo greeted her as though he had been expecting her. "So, the cursed weaver has come," he said, his milky white eyes fixed on some unseen horizon. His voice was like the rustle of dry leaves. "I need answers," Lyla said, stepping inside. "The elders want me to test the men of Ravendale to find the one who can break the curse, but I don't know how to begin." Theo tilted his head, his thin lips curling into a faint smile. "The answers lie within you, child. The mark you bear is not just a curse, it is a key. And like all keys, it seeks the right lock." Lyla frowned. "What does that mean?" Theo gestured to a loom in the corner of his hut, its threads shimmering with an otherworldly light. "You must weave a tapestry with threads spun from your mark. When the tapestry is complete, it will reveal the truth. It will judge the hearts of those who seek to claim you." "And if none are worthy?" Lyla asked. Theo's smile faded. "Then the curse will remain, and Ravendale will wither. But beware, this test will reveal not only their truth, but also your own. Are you prepared for that?" Lyla hesitated, her fingers brushing the crescent mark on her wrist. Then she squared her shoulders. "I am." As she left the Whispering Woods with Theo's words echoing in her mind, a sense of purpose began to replace her doubt. For the first time, Lyla felt that the mark on her wrist might be more than a curse, might be more than a curse. It might be her chance to rewrite the story of her life and the fate of Ravendale. The day dawned with a sharp chill in the air, and the town of Ravendale buzzed with uneasy anticipation. Word of Lyla's plan had spread like wildfire, and the people gathered in the square, their breaths clouding in the crisp morning air. At the center stood Lyla, her composure as steady as the mountains surrounding the valley. Beside her was the tapestry she had woven, no ordinary cloth but a shimmering masterpiece, its threads glinting with an unnatural light. This was the mirror, imbued with the magic of her mark, a tool to test the hearts of men. The elders presided over the event, their faces etched with a mixture of skepticism and hope. Osric, the head elder, raised his hand to silence the murmuring crowd. "Today, we begin the test that may lead to Ravendale's salvation," he declared. "Each man who believes he is worthy will step forward and touch the mirror. It will reveal the truth of their heart, whether they are strong enough to break the curse and lead our town to prosperity." The crowd parted uneasily as the first volunteer stepped forward. He was a tall man named Garrick, a soldier known for his bravery in past skirmishes with neighboring villages. His armor gleamed in the morning sun as he approached the tapestry, his confident stride faltering slightly as he stood before it. Lyla stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Place your hand on the tapestry, Garrick. If your heart is true, the mirror will show it." Garrick hesitated, then extended a gauntleted hand. As soon as his fingers touched the shimmering threads, the tapestry darkened. Shadows rippled across its surface, forming images of Garrick's greed and his thirst for power. The crowd gasped as the shadows coalesced into the image of Garrick standing over a treasure hoard, clutching gold while the townspeople starved. "No." Garrick stepped back, his face pale. "This is a lie." But the tapestry had already spoken. Lyla met his gaze, unflinching. "The mirror reveals what is in your heart, not what you wish it to show. You are not the one." Garrick stormed off, his reputation tarnished, and the townspeople murmured amongst themselves. Some seemed emboldened by the revelation, while others hesitated, their confidence shaken. The next man to step forward was Bran, a prosperous merchant who had made his fortune trading grain. His plump figure and expensive clothes marked him as a man of wealth, but his smile was tight with unease as he approached the tapestry. I have provided for this town when others could not, Bran announced, as if justifying himself before even beginning. Surely that counts for something. Lyla simply nodded toward the tapestry. Bran placed his hand on it, and once again, shadows danced across its surface. This time, the mirror revealed the merchant's avarice. His schemes to hoard grain during the famine and sell it at exorbitant prices. A loud murmur of anger spread through the crowd as Bran's duplicity was laid bare. Enough! Bran shouted, pulling his hand away. This cursed cloth is rigged. But the crowd was already turning on him, their whispers sharp with accusations. Bran fled, his head low, as the townsfolk began to grasp the gravity of the test. One by one, the men came forward. Some, like Garrick and Bran, were exposed as unworthy, their flaws and vices magnified by the mirror. Others simply left no mark. The tapestry shimmered briefly before returning to its neutral glow, neither condemning nor affirming them. It was as if the mirror judged them insignificant, unfit to carry the weight of Ravendale's destiny. Hours passed, and the mood in the square grew tense. Fewer men stepped forward now, fear and doubt rippling through the crowd. The tapestry, its magic undeniable, had turned the test into a crucible of truth, and few were willing to risk their secrets being revealed. Then came Ewan. The humble carpenter emerged from the edge of the crowd, his simple clothes and quiet demeanor a stark contrast to the others who had tested their worth. His calloused hands betrayed years of honest labor, and as he approached the tapestry, the crowd fell into a hushed silence. Lyla watched him carefully. Ewan's name was not one that had been whispered in gossip or speculation. He was a man of few words, known for his integrity but never for ambition. Yet something about the way he carried himself intrigued her, a quiet strength that seemed to anchor him amid the chaos. "Are you ready?" Lyla asked. Ewan nodded, stepping forward without hesitation. He placed his hand on the tapestry, and for a moment, nothing happened. The mirror shimmered faintly, its surface rippling like water in a gentle breeze. Then, slowly, it began to glow. The images that formed were not of grandeur or power, but of quiet acts of kindness. Ewan repairing homes without payment, sharing his meager food with hungry children, and standing resolute in the face of hardship. The crowd murmured in awe, and Lyla felt her breath catch. For the first time that day, the tapestry had responded with affirmation. But just as the light began to intensify, it dimmed again, leaving a lingering glow but no definitive answer. Ewan stepped back, his expression thoughtful but not disheartened. "What does it mean?" someone in the crowd called. Osric rose from his seat, his voice tinged with both uncertainty and hope. "It means he may be worthy, or it means the test is incomplete. The curse demands absolute truth." Ewan returned to the crowd, his expression calm despite the ambiguity. Lyla found herself watching him, questions swirling in her mind. Why had the tapestry not given a clear answer? Was it possible that the curse demanded something more? As the day waned, fewer men dared to approach. The failures of the early participants, combined with the uncertain result for Ewan, had sown doubt in even the bravest hearts. By the time the sun dipped below the mountains, Only one figure remained: Harold, the wealthy and influential leader of Ravendale's largest family. Harold had been watching the proceedings with a calculating gaze. Unlike the others, he had not rushed forward, nor had he shown any signs of fear. Now, as the crowd turned to him, Harold smirked and stepped forward. "Well, well," he drawled, his voice dripping with confidence. "I suppose it falls to me to prove once and for all that this town deserves better leadership." Lyla stiffened as Harold approached the tapestry. There was something unsettling in his swagger, a sense of entitlement that clashed with the solemnity of the moment. He stopped before her, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Let's get this over with, shall we?" Lyla hesitated but nodded. "Place your hand on the tapestry." Harold extended a hand, his expression unreadable, and touched the shimmering threads. The crowd leaned forward in tense silence, every eye fixed on the mirror. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the tapestry began to darken. But this time, the shadows did not form images. Instead, they swirled violently, as if the mirror itself recoiled from Harold's presence. A low guttural hum emanated from the tapestry, and the crowd gasped as the threads began to fray, tiny sparks of magic crackling in the air. Harold pulled his hand back with a scowl. "This is a farce," he barked. "That thing is broken. It can't handle the truth of real power." But the damage had been done. The tapestry, though still intact, now bore faint scars, its magic strained. The crowd erupted into whispers, some questioning the test's integrity, others openly accusing Harold of foul play. Lyla stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "The mirror does not lie. It reacts to what it sees, and what it saw in you was enough to damage its very fabric. The truth has been revealed." Harold's jaw clenched, his facade of confidence slipping for the first time. He turned sharply, disappearing into the crowd, but the seeds of doubt and division had already been sown. As night fell, Lyla stood by the tapestry, her mind racing. The test was far from over, and the curse had yet to reveal its final truth. The square was nearly empty when the crowd finally dispersed, but the tension lingered like an unspoken accusation. Lyla stood before the tapestry, her hands brushing the damaged threads. The marks left by Harold's touch were faint but undeniable, and the memory of the mirror's violent reaction haunted her. The curse had not been broken, and the town was more divided than ever. Harold's departure had been abrupt, but his influence was not easily shaken. By the next morning, whispers of dissent rippled through Ravendale. Men who had not yet tested the mirror began to question its legitimacy, claiming it was a trick, a ploy by Lyla to seize control. Harold, with his wealth and charisma, fanned the flames of doubt, ensuring the rumors spread like wildfire. "It's nothing more than a cursed artifact," Harold declared to a gathering of his allies at his estate. "She's using her so-called mark of darkness to manipulate us all. Do you think it's a coincidence that the mirror broke under my touch? She fears the truth, that I'm the rightful leader of this town." His voice carried the authority of a man who was used to being obeyed, and his audience nodded in agreement. Among them were merchants, farmers, and even a few of the town's guards. Men who had prospered under Harold's patronage and had little reason to question his motives. "Then, what's your plan?" one of the men asked. Harold's lips curled into a sly smile. Simple. If the tapestry is the source of her power, we'll destroy it. Without it, she has no proof, no way to hold this fast together. The town will see her for what she truly is, a fraud. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Harold and his followers moved under the cover of darkness. Armed with knives and torches, they made their way toward the square, where the tapestry had been secured for the night. It was guarded by only a handful of townsfolk loyal to Lyla, men and women who believed in the prophecy and in her ability to break the curse. Ewan was among them. He stood near the tapestry, his arms crossed, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of trouble. Since his ambiguous encounter with the mirror, he had remained steadfast, a quiet pillar of support for Lyla. While he had no illusions about being the destined savior, he couldn't ignore the sense of responsibility that had settled over him. The first sign of trouble was the flicker of torchlight. Ewan tensed, his hand instinctively moving to the hatchet at his belt. From the darkness, Harold's men emerged, their faces set with grim determination. "This ends tonight," Harold announced, stepping forward. He held his torch high, the flames casting his features in sharp relief. "Step aside, carpenter. This has nothing to do with you." Ewan didn't move. "It has everything to do with me. You touched that tapestry, and you're not just fighting Lyla. You're fighting everyone who still believes in hope." Harold sneered. "Hope won't save this town. Only strength will. Now move." The other guards stepped closer, forming a protective barrier in front of the tapestry. Harold's men hesitated, their confidence wavering. While they outnumbered the defenders, the sight of Ewan's hatchet and the determined faces of those protecting the mirror gave them pause. But Harold was not one to be deterred. He gestured sharply, and his men surged forward. Chaos erupted as the two groups clashed, the sounds of shouting and metal clanging against wood, filling the square. Ewan fought with precision. His strikes measured but powerful. He wasn't the strongest man in Ravendale, but his resolve was unshakable. Lyla arrived moments later, drawn by the commotion. Her heart sank at the sight of the fighting, but she refused to let panic take hold. She called out above the noise, her voice clear and commanding. "Stop this madness! You're tearing the town apart!" For a moment, the combatants hesitated, her words cutting through the chaos. But Harold, ever the opportunist, seized the distraction. He broke free from the melee and lunged toward the tapestry, his knife glinting in the torchlight. Lyla saw him coming and stepped into his path. "You can't destroy it, Harold. The truth will remain, no matter how much you try to bury it." He laughed coldly. "Truth? This tapestry is nothing but lies. It's time to end this charade." With a forceful shove, Harold pushed Lyla aside and slashed at the tapestry. Sparks flew as his blade connected with the enchanted threads, but instead of tearing, the fabric shimmered, its magic pushing back against the attack. Harold stumbled, his face twisting in frustration. Before he could strike again, Ewan tackled him, the two men crashing to the ground. Harold fought with surprising ferocity, but Ewan's strength and determination proved superior. Pinning Harold to the cobblestones, Ewan growled, "To the cobblestones." Ewan growled, "You've done enough damage. Leave before you make this." But Harold was not easily subdued. With a desperate burst of energy, he broke free and staggered to his feet. His gaze darted between Ewan, Lyla, and the tapestry. "This isn't over," he spat. "You'll regret standing against me." He retreated into the darkness, his men following reluctantly. The square fell silent except for the heavy breathing of the defenders. The tapestry, though intact, bore fresh scorch marks where Harold's blade had struck. Its glow was dimmer now, the damage to its magic unmistakable. Lyla approached it cautiously, her fingers brushing the frayed edges. "It's weaker," she murmured. "The magic is fading." Ewan stepped beside her, his voice low. "But it's not gone. That has to mean something." She nodded, though doubt gnawed at the edges of her thoughts. The curse was proving more resilient than she had anticipated, and Harold's growing defiance threatened to unravel everything she had worked for. The next day, Harold wasted no time spreading his version of the events. He painted himself as the victim, claiming that Lyla's defenders had attacked him without cause. "She's using that corset cloth to manipulate us," he proclaimed to anyone who would listen. "It's time we took back control of this town." The divide in Ravendale deepened. Those who supported Lyla grew more resolute, rallying around her as a beacon of hope. But Harold's influence was undeniable, and his supporters became bolder, their accusations louder. The town teetered on the brink of chaos, and Lyla knew that another confrontation was inevitable. She met with the elders that evening, her frustration evident. "The tapestry won't hold much longer," she admitted. "If Harold attacks again, I'm not sure it will survive." Osric frowned, his brow furrowed in thought. "Then we must find a way to end this once and for all. The truth must be revealed before Harold's lies destroy us." "But how?" Marin asked. "The mirror's power is fading, and Harold won't stop until it's gone." Lyla glanced at Ewan, who stood silently at the edge of the room. His presence was steadying, a reminder that not everyone in Ravendale had lost faith. "We need to force Harold to face the mirror again," she said finally. "This time, in front of the entire town. Let everyone see the truth for themselves." Osric hesitated, but then he nodded. "It's risky, but it may be our only chance." The plan was set, and the stage was prepared. Ravendale would soon gather for what could be its final reckoning. The tapestry, damaged but still glowing faintly, would reveal Harold's truth, or plunge the town into darkness forever. The town square was alive with tension as the people of Ravendale gathered under the pale light of a full moon. Word of the confrontation had spread, and nearly every villager had come to witness the final test. The damaged tapestry hung in the center of the square, its once brilliant glow reduced to a faint shimmer. Guards stood at the edges of the gathering, their faces stern and watchful, ensuring that no one disrupted the proceedings. Lyla stood beside the tapestry, her heart a storm of emotions. The events of the past days had left her exhausted, but she refused to falter. This was her chance to restore order, to finally reveal the truth that would determine Ravendale's future. By her side stood Ewan, his quiet strength a source of comfort amid the swirling uncertainty. Osric stepped forward, his voice commanding as he addressed the crowd. "Tonight we come together to uncover the truth. Harold, you have accused Lyla of deceit and claimed the tapestry is a fraud. Now you will face the test one final time, here before the eyes of the entire town." The crowd murmured, their faces a mix of anticipation and fear. Harold emerged from the throng, his expression defiant. He was flanked by a handful of his most loyal supporters, their presence a reminder that his influence was far from diminished. "This farce has gone on long enough," Harold declared, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "The tapestry is a tool of manipulation, nothing more. But if it takes touching it again to prove my point, so be it." He strode toward the tapestry with the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. Lyla's gaze followed him, her jaw tightening as he approached. "This isn't just about you, Harold," she said. "The truth will come out whether you like it or not." Harold ignored her, stopping in front of the shimmering cloth. He raised his hand, pausing for effect before placing it firmly on the threads. The crowd fell silent, the air thick with suspense. The air thick with suspense. At first, nothing happened. The tapestry remained dim, its surface rippling faintly as if uncertain. Harold smirked, glancing back at the crowd. "See? Nothing." The tapestry erupted in shadows. Dark tendrils snaked across its surface, coalescing into vivid images that flickered and shifted with unsettling clarity. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the truth unfolded before their eyes. The first image showed Harold in his grand estate, hoarding sacks of grain and barrels of water while the rest of the town starved. His face was twisted in greed as he counted his riches, oblivious to the suffering outside his walls. The next image was even darker. Harold conspiring with traders to siphon off essential supplies, ensuring that Ravendale's famine continued while he profited. The shadows deepened, revealing a final, damning vision. Harold standing over the broken ruins of the town, his hands stained red as he declared himself ruler. The crowd recoiled, whispers of disbelief and outrage, whispers of disbelief and outrage rising like a wave. Harold's smirk vanished, replaced by a mask of fury. "Lies!" he bellowed, tearing his hand away from the tapestry. "This is a trick. She's manipulating the mirror to turn you against me." But the crowd was no longer listening. The images had struck a chord too deep to ignore. People began shouting, their anger erupting into a chorus of accusations. "You let us starve while you grew rich. You betrayed us all, Harold. Get him out of our town." Harold's supporters looked uneasy, their loyalty wavering in the face of the damning evidence. Even those who had once stood firmly by his side now edged away, their gazes avoiding his. Osric raised his hands, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Enough! The tapestry has spoken, and the truth is clear. Harold, you have betrayed this town and its people for your own gain. You are unworthy to lead. You are unworthy to lead, or even to call yourself one of us." Harold's face darkened, his fists clenched as he glared at Osric. "You can't cast me out. This town needs me. Without my resources, you'll all wither and die." Ewan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We'll manage without you. Ravendale needs honesty and unity, not greed and lies. Your time is over." The crowd roared in agreement, their anger solidifying into a collective will. Harold, realizing he had lost, took a step back. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. "You'll regret this." But no one moved to defend him. The guards approached, their expressions grim, as they escorted Harold out of the square. His protest faded into the night as he was led away, his once commanding presence reduced to a shadow of its former self. The square fell silent, the weight of what had just transpired settling over the crowd. Lyla stepped forward, her voice steady, but laced with emotion. The truth has been revealed, but our journey isn't over. The tapestry is still damaged and the curse remains unbroken. We must find the one who can restore it and bring true salvation to Ravendale. The people listened, their anger giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. Osric nodded, stepping to her side. We will not falter. The tapestry has shown us the truth, and we will follow it to the end. Ewan remained silent, his eyes on Lyla. The faint glow of the tapestry reflected in her determined gaze, a reminder that the battle was not yet won. For now, Ravendale had taken a step toward redemption, but the road ahead was still fraught with uncertainty. As the crowd dispersed, whispers of hope replaced the earlier cries of outrage. The tapestry hung in the square, its faint glow a beacon in the night. Lyla watched it for a long moment, her hand brushing the threads as if searching for answers. "This is only the beginning," she murmured. "The real test is still to come." Beside her, Ewan nodded. "We'll face it together." The night air was heavy with tension as the villagers gathered again in the square the following evening. Though Harold had been exposed and banished, the curse still loomed like an unspoken threat. The tapestry, damaged but still glowing faintly, hung in the center of the square, a fragile symbol of hope. Lyla stood nearby, her gaze fixed on its shimmering threads. The fabric seemed alive, its faint pulsations a reminder of the power it still held. The elders had called for one final test, a chance for the tapestry to reveal the one destined to break the curse and lead Ravendale to salvation. This time, no more accusations, no more accusations, no more accusations, no more schemes. Only the truth. Lyla felt the weight of the moment pressing on her, but she refused to let fear cloud her resolve. Osric stepped forward, his voice solemn as he addressed the crowd. "The tapestry has endured much, but it has not faltered. Tonight it will reveal the one whose heart is pure and strong enough to lift the curse. Let those who have not yet been tested step forward." A hush fell over the square. The remaining men, hesitant and uncertain, exchanged uneasy glances. Most had avoided the earlier tests, unwilling to risk their secrets being laid bare. Now, with the eyes of the entire village upon them, their hesitation was palpable. Lyla scanned the crowd, her heart sinking at the sight of their reluctance. The tapestry needed a willing participant, someone who believed in the truth it revealed. Just as she began to doubt anyone would come forward, Ewan stepped out of the shadows. "I'll do it," he said simply, his voice steady. The crowd turned toward him, their murmurs a mix of surprise and approval. Ewan's previous test had been inconclusive, but his quiet courage had earned the respect of many. Now, as he approached the tapestry, he carried himself with the same unshakable determination that had defined him throughout the ordeal. Lyla met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "You've already been tested once." "I need to know," Ewan replied. "For myself, for the town." Something in his tone made Lila's breath catch, but she quickly nodded. "Then place your hand on the tapestry. Let it show us the truth." Ewan stepped forward, his calloused hand brushing the damaged threads. The tapestry shimmered, its light flickering as if struggling to respond. The crowd held their breath, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. At first, nothing happened. The fabric pulsed weakly, its glow uneven. Then, slowly, the light began to intensify. Warm golden hues spread across the tapestry, illuminating the square in a soft radiance. Images began to form, scenes of Ewan's life, his quiet acts of kindness and selflessness. He was shown repairing homes destroyed by storms, sharing his food with those in need, and standing firm against injustice. The crowd watched in awe as the tapestry glowed brighter, its magic surging despite the damage it had sustained. But then the light flickered again, faltering as if it was reaching its limit. The images blurred and the glow dimmed. Yuan stepped back, his brow furrowed. "What does it mean?" he asked, his voice laced with confusion. Lyla approached the tapestry, her fingers brushing the fabric. The light responded weakly, pulsing beneath her touch. "It means the tapestry is too damaged to reveal the full truth," she said, her voice heavy with frustration. "But it's clear you're close. There's something missing." Osric stepped forward, his face grim. "Then we must act quickly. If the tapestry fails completely, the curse will remain forever." The crowd stirred uneasily, their hope wavering. Lyla closed her eyes, her mind racing. The tapestry's magic had nearly reached Ewan, but the damage Harold had inflicted was holding it back. She needed to restore its power, but how? A memory surfaced. The words of Theo, the enigmatic seer who had guided her at the beginning of her journey. "The mark you bear is not just a curse. It is a key," he had said. "And like all keys, it seeks the right lock." Lila's hand moved instinctively to her wrist, her fingers tracing the crescent-shaped mark. Could it be the missing piece? Could her connection to the tapestry restore its power? Without hesitation, she stepped forward and placed her hand on the threads alongside Ewan's. The tapestry flared to life, its glow reigniting with a fierce intensity. Lyla gasped as a surge of energy coursed through her, the mark on her wrist burning like fire. The crowd shielded their eyes as the tapestry blazed, its light illuminating the entire square. Images began to form again, this time brighter and sharper than before. The scenes of Ewan's life returned, but now they were joined by new ones, visions of Lyla and Ewan together, their shared determination to save Ravendale, their unspoken bond growing stronger with each challenge they faced. The tapestry wove their stories into one, its magic binding them in a way that was undeniable. As the light reached its peak, a final image appeared. Ewan standing beneath the great tree at the heart of Ravendale, the symbol of the town's resilience and unity. The mark on Lila's wrist glowed brightly in the vision, its light merging with Ewan's as the tree bloomed with golden leaves. The tapestry's glow faded, leaving the square bathed in a warm golden haze. The crowd erupted into cheers, their doubt replaced with jubilant relief. The truth was clear. Ewan was the one destined to break the curse, and Lyla was the one destined to break the curse, and Lyla was the key that made it possible. Ewan turned to Lyla, his expression a mix of wonder and gratitude. "It was you," he said softly. "You made this happen." Lyla smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We did it together. Ravendale needed both of us." Osric stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. "The tapestry has spoken. The curse is broken. Ewan, you are the one chosen to lead us into a new era. And Lyla, You are the heart of this town, the reason we found our way back to the light." The crowd erupted into applause, their joy echoing through the night. Ravendale had endured its darkest hours, but now, at last, the dawn was breaking. The tapestry, though damaged, had fulfilled its purpose, and the curse that had plagued the town for generations was finally lifted. As the villagers celebrated, Lyla and Ewan stood side by side, their hands still resting on the tapestry. The magic that had bound them together lingered in the air, a quiet reminder of the journey they had shared and the challenges they had overcome. But in their hearts, they both knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Together, they would guide Ravendale into its next chapter, a future built on truth, resilience, and hope. The dawn after the final revelation broke over Ravendale with a brilliance the town hadn't seen in years. The golden light seemed to touch every corner, from the moss-covered rooftops to the towering trees that framed the valley. The once muted colors of the town now felt alive, as though the land itself had been reborn with the lifting of the curse. For the first time in generations, the people of Ravendale awoke with hope in their hearts and a renewed sense of purpose. Lyla stood at the edge of the town square, watching as the villagers began their day. The remnants of the tapestry, though frayed and scarred from Harold's assault, still hung proudly in the center of the square, its faint glow a testament to its fulfilled purpose. Children played around its base, their laughter filling the air, while adults spoke in hushed, reverent tones about the events of the previous night. Ewan approached her, his usual calm demeanor now tinged with something brighter, confidence. "It feels different today," he said, his voice soft but certain. Lyla nodded, her gaze never leaving the tapestry. "It does. It feels like we've finally been given a chance to rebuild." "And we will," Ewan replied, his tone resolute. "Together." The word lingered between them, a promise as unspoken as it was undeniable. Lyla glanced at him, a small smile playing on her lips. She was no longer the outcast bearing the mark of darkness. She was part of something greater now, a bond forged through struggle and triumph. Later that morning, the town elders convened under the great oak tree in the heart of Ravendale, a place traditionally reserved for the most significant decisions. Osric stood at the head of the gathering, his weathered hands gripping his staff. The elders had aged in the shadow of the curse, but today their faces held a rare lightness. "Ewan," Osric began, gesturing for him to step forward. "Last night the tapestry revealed the truth. You are the one destined to lead Ravendale. Do you accept this responsibility?" Ewan looked at the gathered crowd, then at Lyla, who stood among them with her head held high. He took a deep breath. "I do," he said, "but only if we lead together. This town wasn't saved by one person. It was saved by all of us who chose to believe in something better." The crowd murmured in agreement, and Osric nodded approvingly. "Then it is decided. Ewan, you will be our leader, and Lyla, our guide. Together, you will help us rebuild and ensure that Ravendale never again falls into darkness." The proclamation was met with cheers, the kind of joyous noise that felt foreign to a town so accustomed to silence and despair. Lyla felt a warmth spread through her chest as the villagers surrounded her and Ewan, their voices filled with gratitude and hope. In the weeks that followed, Ravendale began to change. The fields, long barren under the weight of the curse, began to sprout fresh green shoots. Farmers marveled as crops grew with an unusual vigor, the land seemingly eager to nourish its people once more. The river, which had slowed to a trickle, swelled with clear, sparkling water, its banks alive with the chatter of birds and the hum of insects. Lyla threw herself into the work of rebuilding, using her weaving skills to craft new banners and tapestries for the town. Each piece she created carried a part of the story they had lived, symbols of unity, resilience, and hope. Her mark, once seen as a curse, now became a badge of honor, a reminder of the sacrifice and determination that had saved Ravendale. Ewan, meanwhile, proved himself to be a natural leader. He spent his days in the fields, helping farmers restore their crops, and his evenings listening to the concerns of the townspeople. He made decisions not with authority, but with humility, earning the trust and respect of even the most skeptical villagers. Where Harold had ruled through fear and manipulation, Ewan led through compassion and collaboration. One afternoon, as the sun cast golden rays across the valley, Ewan found Lyla at her loom. She was working on a tapestry unlike any she had made before, one that depicted the great oak tree at the center of Ravendale, its branches stretching wide to shelter the town below. "You've been busy," he said, his voice warm with admiration. Lyla looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "There's so much to capture," she replied, "so many stories to tell." He stepped closer, studying the intricate details of the tapestry. "And you're the one to tell them," he said softly. "You've always been the heart of this town, Lyla, even when no one else could see it." Her cheeks flushed, but she held his gaze. "And you've always been its strength, Ewan." For a moment, the world seemed to pause around them. Then Ewan reached out, taking her hand in his. "We've been through so much," he said, "and there's still so much to do, but I want to face it all with you." Lila's heart swelled as she squeezed his hand. "Together," she said, echoing the word that had come to define their bond. As the seasons changed, Ravendale continued to thrive. The town's newfound prosperity drew travelers and traders who brought news of the wider world. Lyla and Ewan worked tirelessly to ensure that Ravendale's growth was guided by the values they had fought so hard to uphold: truth, unity, and kindness. Harold, meanwhile, was never heard from again. Stripped of his power and exiled from the town, he became little more than a cautionary tale, a reminder of what greed and deception could bring. Ravendale, free of his shadow, flourished in ways no one could have imagined. On the anniversary of the tapestry's final revelation, the villagers gathered once more beneath the great oak tree. They shared stories of the past year, of challenges overcome and dreams realized. Lyla unveiled her newest creation, a tapestry depicting the events that had saved Ravendale, from the first test of the mirror to the moment the curse was lifted. The crowd marveled at her work, their voices filled with gratitude for the woman who had been at the center of it all. As the celebrations continued, Lyla and Ewan stood together at the edge of the gathering, watching the joy that now defined their town. The mark on her wrist, though faint, still glimmered in the moonlight, a reminder of how far they had come. "This is just the beginning," Lyla said, her voice filled with quiet determination. Ewan nodded, his gaze steady. "And whatever comes next, we'll face it. Together." As the villagers sang and danced under the stars, Lyla and Ewan shared a look that spoke of everything they had endured and everything they still hoped to achieve. Ravendale was no longer a place of shadows and despair. It was a place of light, where the seeds of truth and love had taken root. And with Lyla and Ewan at its heart, the town's future was brighter than ever. Thank you for staying until the end of this incredible story. Your time and attention mean everything to us. If you enjoyed this tale of courage, truth, and redemption, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our newest videos. More amazing stories are coming your way, filled with unforgettable twists and powerful lessons. Join our growing community and let's explore these journeys together. See you in the next video.